Hi guys. I stand here. I don't like it. Over here? Maybe I'll stand right there. Okay, there we go. I'm a short rabbi, so these things cover too much of me. So thank you very much for coming out in the middle of the week to hear some Torah. I have a Boca story I want to start with that I have never said over. I don't think I ever said it over in a speech, but thank you so much. I'm not even sure the point of the story, but I will tie it in like rabbis do to random stories. So I am, besides being a rabbi, I have little hobbies, music and so on. So one of my hobbies is art collecting. I enjoy Jewish art. I enjoy human creativity, and especially when it reflects ideas and values, and I like to put it all over my wall. And when my students come in, I am unabashedly Jewish on my sleeve. People see the art everywhere, and they say, "Oh, that's really Jewish of you," and that's what we have. So there was one particular collector that I collected. I really liked his work, and his work sort of looked like stained glass windows, really pretty. And for many years, I've collected his work. And his name was Irving Amen. Now, I'm seeing if that flashes no one's eyes. No, Irving Amen. Okay. Well, you're not art collectors, because if you had been, Irving Amen's actually a pretty big name. He hangs in the Smithsonian and a lot of other museums. And he's a Jewish fellow, and his works are known for their humanity. The faces and the children, very human and very sweet, very beautiful. And you can look him up afterwards. Amen is spelled like Amen, so just like Irving Amen. So I knew he lived in Florida, and he's a really famous artist. Many people collect him, and I knew he lived in Boca. So a number of years ago when I came here, I had looked him up. Like, I'm wondering where he lived. I decided I'm going to visit him, and I like to visit creative people. I learned that from my grandparents, that famous people are just people who fame has spread their name, and everyone enjoys food. So if you invite anyone to lunch, they'll probably say yeah. So I tried to find him. I was going to invite him to lunch, to coffee. Could not track the man down. And eventually, I did find him, and he was in a home for the elderly. He was in a nursing home. I said, okay, that makes sense. He's definitely an older gentleman. So I went into the nursing home, and I went to one of the nurses, and I said, can you tell me which is the room of Irving Amen? They said, who? I said, Irving Amen. They said, we don't know all the residents. I said, yeah, but like, this guy's a really famous artist. He's like, he will go down, at least in our generation, one of the famous artists. They said, we have no idea. So I said, well, I have to find him. I know he's in this home. So I went to the front office, and they found Irving Amen, sure enough, third floor. So I went in, and the man had his art everywhere. It was all over his wall. It was stacked up. He was prolific, even though age had taken away a little bit of his mental acumen, but still he was creative, and he had different styles, and it was just amazing to be there. And he's Jewish, so I sat down. I said, hi, I just want to let you know my name is Klatzko, and I collect your art, one of many thousands of people who do. And he nodded, and I wasn't sure if he knew what I was saying, but I said, should we sing together? He said, sure. So we began singing Hava Nagila, and then we danced around Simon Tov and Mazel Tov. And I'm dancing with this like famous guy, and nobody even knows he's there. And then he said, oh, thank you so much for coming here. Take some paintings. Take some of my paintings. Like, not getting close to that. Like, every one of his paintings were worth many thousands of dollars. And he's just, I don't know. He goes, no, just take one. I said, no, I'm not taking any of your paintings. Your kids will get your paintings one day after 120 years. They're your paintings. But what really struck me was how all you need to do is sing words of Judaism, words of Hebrew, words of that connect. And no matter where we are in life, whatever station we're in, the power of music has a way of transporting us back to our roots. My grandmother had Alzheimer's, and I'm sure you've had this experience as well. If you know somebody, a loved one, who has had Alzheimer's, and you go to visit them, and they're not responding to anything, but suddenly you sing Oifen Pripachik, or anyone know that? Oifen Pripachik? No.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. We got it. You sing Oifen Pripachik, Zog shoy noch amol und dagan, and all of a sudden they're singing along with you, going back from the 1920s, and they're transported back. It's really something very, very, very special. I want to start off by sharing with you a really crazy story. This story is not a Jewish story, but it doesn't have to be. It's got a lesson that it just hits home in the deepest of ways. In America, when you say the king of rock and roll, who do you mean? Elvis. King of pop?
Michael Jackson.
There we go. One guy knows, right? Elvis, right? So, but if you just say the king,
Elvis.
LeBron. Okay. We're too near Miami, right? Okay. He did. So in America, so you had Elvis. Elvis was it. Later on, you had the British invasion, and you had the Beatles came with their mop top hair, and they became the music of a generation. Then you had Simon and Garfunkel, some of the really big classics that you go back to, and every generation thinks it's newfangled, but then that becomes the classics. But absolutely among the most famous would have been Elvis and the Beatles and so on. Now, in different countries, you have different people who are famous. And in South Africa, anyone here from South Africa? No? Okay. In South Africa, Elvis is not the king, not the most famous. There's actually a totally different singer who is the most famous singer of all time in South Africa. You know who it is?
I have no idea.
He is the most famous singer. Every kid sings a song around Kumbaya campfires. There is a singer that is more famous than any of them, and his name is Sixto Rodriguez. Now, Sixto Rodriguez, he had an album called Sugarland. You can look it up. And every kid in South Africa, every adult, Sugarland became the voice of the anti-establishment, that generation in the 1960s, where America had Woodstock. The Sugarland became the album of South Africa, the anthem of that generation. And until today, he is the most famous singer in South Africa. Now, people didn't know much about Sixto Rodriguez, just that his music is awesome. You can go to YouTube and listen to it. His lyrics were really finely crafted, and they were a mixture of anger and hope and rage and longing, really like the really good, like the Bob Dylans of the world, who are able to really craft good music. And people wanted to know, a little bit more about him. And all they knew was how he died. Because Sixto Rodriguez, he was so anti-establishment, he wanted to make a statement. And so one day, in concert, on the stage, in front of thousands of people, he screamed and he raged against the machine. He took out a gun and he shot himself in front of the entire audience. Dropped dead, ambulance came, took him away, died in a blaze of glory, or at least in his mind, screaming against the government. And that's all people really knew about him. They didn't know much about his life. This was before Google. Before Google, we didn't know anything. So that was 1960s, 70s. And this article had come out in the mid to late 1980s about his death. In the mid 2006, 2007 or so, there were two reporters in South Africa who were looking for a good scoop, a good story. So they decided, you know what, we want to do more research into Sixto Rodriguez and how he died and what he was about, because everyone knows his music. So let's find out a little bit more about the man. Makes sense, right? So they started to do research and they looked around. They could not uncover anything. Nobody knew anything about the most famous singer in South Africa. Nobody knew it. It was a mystery. How could he be so famous and yet such a mystery? So they decided they're going to find that newspaper article that described his death, and maybe they'll be able to go to the reporter and find out what arena did it happen in, what date, what song did he just sing. Let's color in, fill in the blanks, get some color to the story. They tracked down the fellow who wrote the story. You know about this? They tracked down the fellow. They asked for an appointment. They came to his house. They sat with him. And they said, we have questions. We're reporters, very important newspaper. We'd like to know, where was he? How did he die? Does anyone know what kind of gun he used? Was it a 9mm? Was that like they wanted details? They wanted to really color the story, and they're bombing away with the questions. And finally, he puts his head down and said, "I have a confession to make. I made it up." They said, "What did you make up?" I made up the story. I made up how he died. I had no idea how the man died. Nobody has any idea. It was a mystery. So I decided a person who's that important in South African history, he has to have a heroic death. So I made it up. They said, "You're kidding us. Everyone knows that's how he died." He said, "Yeah, I did a good job. I made it up." So now they've got a story. So how did he die? Did he overdose? Rock star. Was he hit by a car? Did he die of old age? Like, what happened? How did he die? And that became the news story. How did he die? Where did he live? How did he die? They could not find any information. And eventually, in a last-ditch effort to find out something about Sixto Rodriguez, they began combing through the lyrics of his songs. Maybe there's a hint in his songs where he lived and where he died. And they were about to give up. They combed through all the lyrics. Finally, they found these words in one of his songs, and the words were, "I met a girl in Dearborn." Anyone know where Dearborn is?
Michigan.
Dearborn, Michigan. So they figure, I met a girl. Maybe that's just to rhyme, right? Sometimes you just throw out, I met a girl in Kalamazoo, right? Also Michigan, by the way, right? Or maybe he was in Michigan. They weren't sure, but they figured they have to try. And they both bought plane tickets. They flew to the United States. They went to Michigan, and they spent weeks looking for a clue about this man's life. They're about to give up when they are inside of an old, dusty record shop, the antique records, and they're looking to see, are there any of the Sixto Rodriguez records? And the man says, "Can I help you, sir?" And they said, we're looking for some information about Sixto Rodriguez. He goes, "Oh, I remember that album." Actually, the man said, the producer of that CD lives a few blocks away. They said, "You're kidding. The producer who produced Sugarland lives a few blocks away. Is he still alive?" "Yes." So they went running over to his house. I don't know if they called first, but they went running over to his house. They knock on his door. He lets them in. He sits down with them. And they said, "You're the producer? That's amazing. Of Sixto Rodriguez Sugarland?" And he goes like this. "I remember that album. We didn't sell 10 copies of it." "We didn't sell. What do you mean? You didn't send 10?" "Yeah, we put it out. It was a darn good album. It was an excellent. The lyrics, the music was great, but it just didn't sell. I guess he missed the boat when it came to being counterculture. You missed it. Didn't sell." I said, "That's crazy. In South Africa, it is the album." They said, "Wow, so we have questions. You knew in person?" "Of course I do." "So how did he die? How did he die?" And the producer looks at them and says, "I don't know what you're talking about. He lives a few blocks away." So their jaw drops to the ground. That's literally like hearing Elvis is alive and lives, 2 blocks away. That's exactly what it's like. No exaggeration. "Oh, he lives a few blocks. Sixto Rodriguez is alive?" So they said, "Can we have this information?" "Sure, yeah. I think he'll be thrilled to meet you guys." "Sure, here's where he lives." They call up, a lady answers the phone. It was his daughter. They said, "Can we meet your dad?" He said, "Come on over. I don't know if he'll be home soon." They both came over to his home. It was a ratty little dump. It was smelly. It was old, cobwebby. No, you could see it was just an old little house. They come in, and this Hispanic lady says, "Please come in. You want to see my dad? Please have a seat on the couch, and he should be back soon." "What does he do? Where is he?" "Oh, he scrapes floors for a living." What? Sixto Rodriguez is a floor scraper? The whole thing was so bizarre. They're waiting, and they're excited, and they're sure it's a hoax. Like, they don't know who's going to walk in, but it must be a different guy with a different name. Half an hour later, in walks in a man with a shaggy beard and longish hair, with paint stains and varnish stains all over his overalls. He comes in, and they look at him, and behind all that facial hair is the picture on the cover of the album. It is Sixto Rodriguez. They jump out of their seat and they said, Sixto Rodriguez? Yeah? What is it to you? You're Sixto? Yeah, I am. I'm Sixto Rodriguez. What can I do for you? He said, oh, you're not going to believe this. Please sit down. He says, okay, I'll sit. He sits down. He said, you remember you made that album, Sugarland? You know my album? I can't believe you actually remember. No, I know your album. Everyone knows you. Everyone. We're from South Africa, and they were stumbling over their words. How do you explain to somebody that they're the greatest thing since sliced bread? You know, we're from South Africa, and every kid in South Africa knows every word, every lyrics to every one of your songs. We sing it. It's the memories of our youth. It's the memories of our graduation. Your song? And he says, you don't say. Really? So they're saying, you don't understand. You're scraping floors. You are so famous. If people would know you're alive, they would carry you through the street on a chair. They would make parades for you. You don't say. No, really, would you come with us back to South Africa? Would you come with us? And do what? Do a concert. We want to tell South Africa you're alive. And Sixto Rodriguez, after 40 years of being who knows where, is on stage. It would be the biggest story. He said, okay, I'll do it. He calls up his boss and says, not coming to work tomorrow. Why? I'm going to go to South Africa. Going to South Africa? Why are you going? Well, man, I'm going to do a concert there. Like very casually. You do music? Yeah, I do music. So they arranged his tickets. They sent out a press release. Sixto Rodriguez is alive and well and living in Michigan. And he's going to be coming to South Africa. And his plane lands. Thousands and thousands of South Africans, old and young, holding signs and banners welcoming him. And he stands at the top of the stairs before walking down from the jetway. And he wipes a tear from his eye. Can't quite believe what's going on. And the next night was the concert. He sold out 6 concerts of 15,000 people a concert. And he got up in front of his first crowd and he said, South Africa, thank you for keeping me alive. Thank you for keeping me alive. And the place goes crazy. Now, if this story intrigues you, and it should, you can go to YouTube. They actually made this into a movie. It's a documentary. The name of the documentary is called Sugarland, about Sixto Rodriguez. They'll charge you a few bucks. Definitely worth it. The reason that this is so incredibly compelling is because Judaism says the following. There's a value system in this world. And the value system in this world dictates who is important, who is famous, who is worthy, who's worthwhile. And that value system has very little to do with our value system. I was a rabbi in Hollywood for many years. I gave a class to the VP of Warner Brothers, Sony, Disney, all my students. And when they sit around to sit and learn Torah, there's a certain quiet humbleness. The arrogance has a way of melting away because you know you're touching on something that is divine and eternal, and you're not divine, and you're certainly not eternal. And those values that parents want from their children, I don't mean the good stuff. I don't mean the honesty and the integrity and the empathy and the humbleness. I'm talking about the values like extra degrees smacked on the wall, and it's got to be a Lexus and not a Camry because you're a loser if it's just a Camry. And you're a loser if you don't have a good pension plan, and you're a loser if you don't have a vacation to Cancun. Our value system is so radically different. And we see this when a basketball player or a baseball player makes $250 million for throwing a ball in a hoop, and our teachers and our soldiers get paid $30,000, $40,000, can barely make ends meet so couples need to have both couples need to have jobs just to pay their basic bills. It's not just unfair. It's the sign of a value system that is broken. And that value system gets transmitted to our children. And then they want to be stars, and everyone wants to be a star, and everyone wants to have their name in lights, and they want to be liked and liked and liked on Facebook. And if they only have 50 likes and not 100 likes, it's not worth it. And if nobody comments on their post, they delete their post because it's embarrassing having a post with no comments on the post because you're a loser. And for sure, Instagram, right? It's true. Got to have extra posts. And I have to have friends, and the friends have to have friends, and I have to have enough happy birthdays on my birthday from Facebook to make me worthwhile. 20 happy birthdays are not enough. I need to have, even though you don't know who they are, but at least Facebook reminded everyone that it's your birthday, so they'll write happy birthday, and they fulfill their duty, and you click like, so you fulfilled your duty back, and the whole thing is hollow. And Judaism gives us an absolutely different set of values. I'm a college rabbi. And sometimes I worry about our generation that's coming up. It's a great concern because it's not how much money you make. It is how many people you affect and how many lives you change. The Talmud says something amazing. It says many things amazing. But this is one of the things the Talmud says. The Talmud says, in Chulin, Mokum hinachta li'avosai li'skadel bo. There is a place that Hashem has left for each person to become great. There is a niche, there is a spot, there is an opening for you to accomplish something that no one since the history of time accomplished, and nobody will accomplish if you don't accomplish it. If the Chafetz Chaim had not written the Sefer Chafetz Chaim about not speaking Lashon Hara, it's not like Yankel Schwartz would have written those laws. It's not like he would have been the next Chafetz Chaim. It's not, if Meir Shapiro had not thought of Daf Yomi, which is learning a page of Talmud a day, we do it all over the world. It's not like somebody else would have done it. And maybe if somebody hadn't opened the JEC over here, it's not like, okay, there'll be other rabbis opening other things. It wouldn't look like this. It wouldn't touch the same people. It's a special place in our soul that Hashem gives us to become great. You know, I was sitting around the table, a Shabbat table, and there was a young lady, and I was trying to tell everyone, you got your place, you've got to think of what it is. And she said, I can't do anything, Rabbi. Look at me. I said, what do you mean, look at you? What? But of course I did, and I saw right away one of her legs was longer than the other. She was born with a deformity, but the worst deformity was half of her face drooped like melted wax. Half of her face looked fine, half of it drooped down. Her eye, her mouth, it's like the muscles had atrophied. It's sad. It was a condition she was born with. And she said, Rabbi, you're telling everyone we can make a difference. I can't make a difference. No one's going to listen to me. I said, baloney. You're meant to do something great. She said, Rabbi, you're mocking me. I said, no, I'm not. She said, tell me what I could do. I could say, think of 1,000 things. She said, give me one. I said, I'll tell you one. I was just in Israel, and the fellow standing next to me, an older gentleman, definitely poor. You could see by the way he walked and the way he was dressed. And his shoes, one of his shoes were so tattered that he used packing tape around the front, around the toe of his shoe to keep the sole attached to the top of his shoe. Hardly waterproof. Like packing tape. The whole thing is packing tape. I said, we live in America. I don't know of anyone in America who does not have at least one pair of shoes sitting there in the closet that we don't wear. Does anyone have one pair they don't wear? 2, 3, 4, 10? All right, we got plenty of shoes, America. We have plenty of shoes sitting there, but nobody's doing anything with those shoes. I said to her, what would happen if you collected shoes for Israel? Right? Shoes are very expensive in Israel. Collect shoes for Israel. That's what I told this young lady. A few weeks later, I get a call. It's her father. She says, Rabbi, What am I supposed to do? There are 20 crates of shoes sitting in my dining room. What am I supposed to do with these crates? Who's shipping them? And she actually did it. Because, oh, you bet she did it. She went to Flatbush, Ocean Parkway, and she went knocking door to door, hobbling around because it was hard for her to walk, asking, do you have any extra shoes for Israel? And people were joyous. They gave her new shoes, beautiful shoes, expensive shoes. And he says, I got to ship them to Israel. We have a place in the world. Our value system is not our degree, but it's the degree of the people that we affect. Unfortunately, this young lady passed away that year. So I say this story in her memory. But we have to believe that we don't have to remain silent and frustrated. I want to share with you another story. And this is a story that I think connects the ripple effect of a person understanding their value and their worth. There was a young boy by the name of Neil whose father passed away when he was 5, so he was an orphan. And his mother said, it's just you and I don't plan on getting remarried. My goal in life is now to build you up to being a doctor or a lawyer or something of value. And I know if we keep holding on to our Judaism and we do our Shabbat and we do our kosher, I know it's going to happen. You'll end up with a big beard going around and begging for money. They used to call it a schnorrer. You can be a schnorrer. You're going to go around begging. And I don't want you to be a schnorrer. So you know what? No time for Shabbat, no time for kosher, no time for holidays. You and I, it's just us alone in the world. So Neil's 5 years old. He says, okay, Mom, whatever you say. And to make it a point, she actually brought him to McDonald's on a Friday night. It was like she really wanted to explain that this is not for us anymore. When Neil was in 7th grade, he's walking down the street and he passes a gentleman who says, oh, you're Neil. I knew who your father was. Hirsch. I knew your father. He was a Jewish, he was an observant Jew. You're not? So Neil says, well, I'll tell you the truth. I'd be interested. But my mom said we can't have anything to do with people who are religious because if we become religious, yeah, I know it's going to be. And, I have to support a family and I don't have a father backing me up. So this friend of the father said, look, you could go to an after-school school. Go to a Hebrew school. There was a school in that neighborhood called Yabi. You can go to Yabi. So after school, you go to public school, and then go learn about Judaism. My mom is never going to let. I know. Ask your mom. If you beg your mom hard enough, you always get what you want. That's a good advice, right? Just got to beg hard enough. So he goes home. He says to his mom, Mom, I want to learn about Judaism. And the mother says, no, you're not going to learn about it. Because if you go to learn about it, you're going to grow the beard. She says, Mom, I'm not growing a beard. I'm in 7th grade. I have 0 facial hair. And I'll buy a shaver. Mom, let me go. No, let me go. No, let me go. Promise you'll get A's. Yes. Hundreds. Yes. And the mother let him go. And Neil went and he learned a little bit about Passover, a little bit about Shabbat, a little bit, some Jewish songs. A little bit he got, but he was waiting. He was biding his time. He was waiting because he knew that after he graduates, he's going to have the opportunity to go to college. And once he's in college, he'll meet a great rabbi, named like Rabbi Goldstein over here, and he'll be able to ask his questions about Judaism. So he graduates high school. He goes to college, and he's so excited. One of the first weeks he was there, he finds the Hillel director, and he says to the Hillel director, can I sit down with you? I got questions about my Judaism. And the director says, okay. What do you want to ask? Well, I want to start with easy one. So why did the Holocaust happen? Where was God? We'll start with that, and then we'll go from there. Yeah. Okay, and then is there life after death? Why do bad things have to come in? Like directors like, I'm a director, I'm not a rabbi, I can't really answer these questions. And Neil was so frustrated. He had waited and waited to have somebody answer his questions, but this particular person was not helpful. Didn't know what to do. So he had an idea. He took out a phone book. That was a book they used to have in the olden days that had phone numbers in it. He took out the phone book And he opened it up and he began looking through the different synagogues in the neighborhood. And he called each synagogue and he said, can I speak to the rabbi? And finally, one synagogue responds, the rabbi picks up, and he said, listen, I'm a student of the college in your community. I'm looking to study Torah. Can I study Torah with you, Rabbi? And the rabbi said, sure, when do you want to study? Oh, how about every Monday? The rabbi said, every week? The rabbi said, look, I can study with you once, I'm happy to. But if you want me to study every single week, I'll have to charge you because I tutor. That's how I make my money. Neil said, no problem. I'll pay you. What is it? And the rabbi said, whatever it was, $20 a session. Neil then goes to the supermarket and he goes over to the help wanted and he says, do you need somebody to stock shelves? I'm a strong young college student. Would you like me to stock your shelves for pay? They said, sure, we could always use another person stocking our shelves. And that became Neil's schedule. He'd go to college. He had a full workload. From there, he'd go to the supermarket and stock shelves until his muscles bulged and ached. All in order to study with the rabbi, Torah, and he was able to pay the rabbi. And that became Neil's routine in college, and he learned more and more and more about his Judaism. Wonderful. He finished college, and he decided at that point he's going to go to medical school. And when you go to medical school, you got to go for an interview. And he had this dilemma, this question. The question was, should he go in with the yarmulke on, with the kippah on? Now, here's the question. This was in the 1960s. And in the 1960s, anti-Semitism was actually quite overt in America. People don't realize that there was even a Nazi party for a little while in the United States. And a lot of the Nazi propaganda and stereotypes did infiltrate the United States. And in the 1960s, you walked in with the yarmulke, there was a good chance that they were not that interested in taking you. So he had this dilemma, this question. Should he walk into the medical school interview with the yarmulke on his head? Or should he stuff it in his back pocket? And what's really the question? The real question is the following. What hat sits on top? Meaning like this. We each wear many hats. A hat's an identity. So a hat, if you're a sister, are you a sister? That's a hat. That's a responsibility. Something happens to your sister, you have to be there for her. Say happy birthday, that's a hat. Are you a daughter? That's another hat. Daughter, sister, which one comes first? Are you an American? That's a hat. Are you a Floridian? That's a hat. Are you a Jew? That's a hat. Are you a student? That's a hat. Are you a friend? Every one of these hats creates responsibilities. It's really interesting what we're saying because we all walk around with many hats. And success in life is really interesting. Success in life is defined by how you order your hats. It's really that simple. If you have the right hats on top, then you will succeed in life. And if you don't, then you're going to sacrifice things that you shouldn't. I'll give you an example. There's a man, and this fellow is a businessman, and his daughter is in the school play, and she has a starring role, and she's so excited that daddy should go. But that day, there's a huge business deal that's going to go down, and it's going to go late into the evening, and he's going to miss his daughter's starring role in the play. What does he do? Does he give up the business deal and go to the play? Or does he skip the play, make the money, and buy his daughter a consolation prize? You know what the answer is? The answer is it depends which hat is on top. If his daddy hat is on top, then he'll go to the play. If his businessman hat sits on top of his daddy hat, then that trumps the daddy hat, and he's going to skip the play. Understand why it's so important? All decisions we make depend on the hats that we wear. I have a student, he's an older man now, but he was a score writer. A score writer, somebody who writes the music for movies, and a movie without music is really lacking. And he was a very famous score writer. His name is Ira Newborn. Now, he's not famous for his name. You may have never heard of Ira Newborn, but a lot of you have probably watched his movies and have heard his music. For example, he did the music for Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Anyone saw that? 16 Candles, Ace Ventura, Pet Detective. Okay, so those are all Ira Newborn movies. John Hughes, Ira Newborn. So he began starting to do Shabbat. He used to come to the class. He's just a lovely fellow. And he wanted to start doing Shabbat in 2 weeks. After he started doing Shabbat, he gets a call from Warner Brothers. We need a piece of music by Saturday night. And they called him Friday afternoon, which means that the only way he could do that piece of music is if he transgresses Shabbos. So what does he do? Does he write the music on Shabbos because his musician score writing hat sits on top? Or does he tell the studio, I can't do it because I'm a Jew before a score writer? What does he do? And then Ira told me this. I was the one who introduced this concept to me. He said, then I realized how many hats I wear. He said, I'm an Angelino, I'm an American, I'm a husband, I'm a father, I'm a Republican, I don't know, maybe Democrat, I don't know. I'm a friend. He says, I wear all these hats. He says, I have no idea which hats go on top. And he said, it bothered me so much that not only didn't I write the score that Shabbat, I didn't go to work that whole week. He said, all I did was pace back and forth in my living room saying, okay, I'm a Jew, I'm a score writer, I'm a friend, I'm a father, I'm a husband, I'm an American, I'm a Jew. No, I'm an American, I'm a father, I'm a husband, I'm Angelino, a Jew. Finally, at the end of the week, he decided, I will be a Jew before a score writer now and forever. And he calls up Warner Brothers and he says, I did not do it, I am not going to do it, and never again ask me to write a score in Shabbat. My Jewish hat goes on top of my other hats. Neil had that dilemma. Should he be a doctor first, in which case he takes the yarmulke and sticks it in his back pocket because he doesn't want to lessen his opportunity to get into a certain medical school? Or does he walk in with the yarmulke, proud, and then whatever life serves, that's what it does, but Jew before doctor? And Neil decided that he's going to walk into every single medical school interview with the kippah on. And he said that he saw the eyes of the interviewers glaze over as he walked in, and their eyes drifted up to the top of his head, glaze over like, no, we're not taking this guy. But he said at that point, I didn't care, because if they don't want me because I'm Jewish, then I don't want them either. I want a place that wants me. Eventually, he did get into a medical school, University of Cincinnati. And the very first week, the professor announced there's going to be a quiz on Saturday. And Neil goes over to the professor and he says, I can't do it Saturday, it's my Shabbat. And the professor looks at his kippah and says, no problem, you'll take it on Sunday. What's your name, Neil? Take it on Sunday. There was another Jew who was in the classroom whose father was an Orthodox rabbi, but he didn't want to make waves when he came to medical school. So he would go like this. He would just put the yarmulke in his back pocket. That's what he did. He just didn't want to make waves. But he would never consider taking a quiz on Shabbat. So he went over to the professor and says, I can't do it either. I can't do it on Shabbat. And the professor says, why not? He says, I can't do it on Shabbat. I'm Jewish. The professor says, no, you'll do it or you'll fail. He says, I don't get it. I was just here. You just told Neil he could take it on Sunday. The professor says, you're not Neil. You see, Neil's a Jew by principle. He walks in, he's got his kippah. He's proud of it. I respect that. But I saw what you did. Says the professor, I'm Jewish as well. I'm not religious, but I'm Jewish. And I saw as you walk in, you looked around and you put it in your back pocket to hide your Jewishness. So you, my friend, are a Jew by convenience. And I don't inconvenience myself for a Jew by convenience. If you're a Jew by principle, I will respect that. And that person had a very tough time with that professor his entire time in college. What happened to Neil? Neil never had to take a quiz on Shabbat. And he kept on growing, and he ended up marrying the daughter of a rabbi. And he had many children. And every one of Neil's children are Shomer Shabbat. And then they had children. And today Neil is an older gentleman. And Neil has 100 grandchildren. 100 grandchildren, each one of them Shomer Shabbat. Every single one of them. And I know this story because Neil's my dad. And I always think, what would have happened if my dad had taken his kippah and stuffed it in his back pocket? Anything that I've been able to accomplish as a rabbi, and as a father, and as a husband, and in my community, and everything we've done through Shabbat.com, and through my Israel trips, and my brothers and sisters who are all leaders in their community, all of that, the ripple effect, would have been so dramatic. It would have been seismic. It would have changed everything. So, let's review. Number one, the values that we hold dear are not the values that we see around us. There are other values, and it's possible to be looked at as nothing in one area, in one region, and really in a different area, it turns out you're great. We say this about tzaddikim, about great righteous people. The greatest person I ever met in my life was a man by the name of Rabbi Moshe Feinstein. I don't know if you've heard that name before. Moshe Feinstein. He's considered probably the Gadol Hadar in the past 70, 80 years. Rabbi Moshe Feinstein stood 5'1". He made me look tall. He's a very, very short and very humble man. And yet, everyone turned to Moshe for advice and guidance. And his great friend, co-Gadol Hadar, was a man by the name of Yaakov Kamenetsky, who was 5'2". Together they make a basketball player. Very short. And yet, our value is not in size, and it's not in symmetrical or aesthetic cheekbones, and it's not in Botox, and it's not in coolness or charisma or it factor. We are our deeds. And everyone has that place in this world that they are supposed to become great through those deeds. And therefore, if the world looks at you like nothing, like Sixto Rodriguez, like he was nothing here, and yet what he had done, at least in the music world, had changed an entire country. Not enough people, and I'm sure there are people sitting around here in this room that have done extraordinary things, but they don't go around tooting their horn and posting on Facebook every time they do a good deed, or every time they help somebody, or they're there for a friend. Could you imagine if every mom who put her kids to sleep nicely with homework and served a good supper, she would go on Facebook and post, "Great mom here, served supper on time, hot and nutritious." Right? Quietly we go about doing the important things in life. And then we understand that when we do those things, the ripple effect, how many people will be affected by those deeds, it's worlds. It's worlds and worlds. I'll finish with my Shabbat.com plug. The rabbi had mentioned it. I told him, I know there was a Disney person who spoke here a month ago. I can't draw cartoons, so I can draw Mickey Mouse. But I will tell you a little bit of the background. We have a lot of guests now. Some of you have been to us or heard. We have 80, 90 or so guests each week for Shabbat. And they don't just eat over, they all sleep over as well. So it's a very big party for 20, 25 hours. Thank God for that. We're very, very happy to do it. We've done it for a few decades now, and my wife is going straight to the highest place that exists up there, and hopefully she'll drag me with her. So after a few years, people said, "Rabbi, give us some of your guests." And I used to think, find your own guests. Like I found mine. Why can't you find yours? And then I realized I'm a college rabbi, so I can find guests, but a lot of people can't find. So I thought, let's make a network where everyone can find guests, and every guest can find a host. So the initial idea was called Shabbat.com. How many people here have heard Shabbat.com before? Okay, about half. So I thought, let's make a little network. And we made the network, and the network grew and grew and grew. And then we said, you know what? Let's add dating to it. Because, what a great way. A lot of people are around around a hot bowl of soup on Shabbat table. You meet that person, you make googly eyes, and then, mazel tov. Right? So we added dating, and we now have at least one engagement every week from the website. It's a little bit higher than that. It's about 6 a month. One of the latest engagements from the website, I am happy to say, is my own son. And thank you. And a week from yesterday, he's getting married, and that was the Shabbat.com shidduch. So it began to grow and spread, and then we added Torah learning because people want to have partners in Torah, so we made a partnership with them, and then we added jobs because, hey, it says 6 days you should work, and the 7th day you should rest. So if we just give them the rest, but we don't help them find work, we're missing out. So we added the jobs, and that is the network. Today, Baruch Hashem, the site is in 142 countries around the world. It's in 6,000 cities. We have Jewish people it's not only Orthodox, it's every denomination. We even have a little thing for curious Gentile. If somebody's not Jewish at all, but they're curious to experience the Shabbat, so why not let them see a beauty of Shabbat? And just a few months ago, we were awarded by the Israeli government as the #1 project in the world for connecting Jews. They gave us $1 million shekel as an award, and Naftali Bennett's office is now putting it in the airports and in buses and whatever. So our goal is to literally get every Jew in the world to make sure that everyone has a place for Shabbat, everyone has a date. No one should be left with saying, the shotgun didn't call me back, right? You can find it on your own. We don't charge for any of it. It's all free, and it's an app and a website. And for the rabbi, if you want to bring more people into your community, if there are people here who can host, you could sign up to be a host, and then start inviting people and let them see what a beautiful community you have. Anyways, thank you very much, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, Rabbi Klatzko. We're going to give a few minutes if anyone has any questions.
Any questions? Here we go.
But I have a question.
Question, yeah.
How is this first $1 million today in an effort to increase the number of participating young people in the Jewish faith?
How would I spend $1 million? If I had $1 million?
I'm associated with somebody who's got this as a problem.
That's a bad problem to have. You have $1 million? I'll tell you what I think. Okay. We have a lot of young people here, so I think the young people will agree. More and more, it's through technology that we connect people. A few years ago, in Tahrir Square, 2 million Egyptians gathered and overthrew the dictator. How do you get 2 million people in a dictatorship? How do you get the word out to 2 million people to get them in one square? And there is only one answer. The answer is through social network and technology. It's the only way that you can reach a lot of people. One of the things that we've done very successfully, interestingly, is we've built an engine that is able to spread better than Facebook. As a matter of fact, people post on Facebook. You could do a Shabbat.com and Facebook post. Watch which one gets more views. Your Shabbat.com will get more views. We have a way of pushing out information, so we could introduce Israel to people. We can introduce Shabbat to people. We can introduce Jewish dating to people. If there's $1 million, the answer is we have to take it now and put it in other languages. We need it because there's at least 500,000 Jewish Russians. There's more than that. There's nearly 500,000 Jewish French people in France. We need French. And the truth is we need in Hebrew as well, because there are soldiers who, after they leave, they go touring around the world. That's what the custom is. And some of them end up in ashrams in Tibet. And we need to connect every Jewish person in the world. And I think technology will do more than the one-on-one. And that's what I see. And you can ask the young people. I don't think they would disagree. That's how to connect people. I don't know how you guys are college students? High school? Are you guys on Instagram? You guys on Snapchat? You guys on Facebook? Okay, so there we go. That's how to do it. But you're not on Twitter, right? There we go. Twitter's overrated. Yeah. We've done our work. We've done our studies. Any other questions? Yeah.
When did you start it?
So we started it the idea came in 2009. We launched in 2010. What really changed over the past 2 years is we went from being a resource to a social network. And anyone into technology here? So okay, in technology, you'll find this interesting. Today, resource sites don't have a good return rate because if you don't need the resource, you're never going back on that site. But what? It doesn't rank high. That's right. You even if you have, I'm working with somebody right now who wants to make a website for all gemachs in the world. Gemach is. Oh right. So gemach, it's like a list. But if you don't need a gemach, you're never going back there. But if you make it social and you make reasons for people to keep coming back, whether it's for pictures or for likes, Mark Zuckerberg knew what he was doing. He's not a dummy. He's a billionaire. So that's when it took off. It took off 2 years ago. And we have a bigger vision how we can then clone it and do very beautiful things with it for our community. Anyone else? Yeah.
Yeah, we just had an idea.
Yeah.
What you could do with $1 million.
Yeah. Oh. Okay.
You could throw these little weekend getaways where people can go and just have fun together and do Jewish things and just meet each other, which is kind of like the Shabbat, but like on a larger scale. And I guess depending on your geographical location, if you were doing it in Hawaii, you wouldn't have to do it anywhere super fun because Hawaii is pretty fun, I think.
So I'll tell you, we're actually starting something like that.
Yeah.
The issue, it's okay, we're speaking about stuff like this, is that okay? There's an issue with return on investment when you make these events. Everyone knows you kick up a lot of dust, and at the end of the day, you didn't accomplish a lot. And I was trained as a bottom line, what was the results, bottom line. And these weekends, the bottom line is very weak. The only way you can make a weekend where the return on investment is anywhere near worthwhile is if there's incredible follow-up and there is a destination that you punch into the GPS. Like, what do you want?
Yeah.
Do you want to stem into marriage? Do you want Shabbat? Do you want synagogue participation? What are you punching in your GPS, and how are you getting there?
Yeah.
But if you don't punch it in,
Right.
I've seen too many.
But like you said in the
organizations.
beginning, if you can alter the thinking of this new generation, then you can prevent a lot of issues that you foresee arising.
It's true. And then how to alter that through parties. Last thing is you should take the $1 million and give it to JEC, because I think if JEC had $1 million, they could clone themselves. Right? Is it true? And then
All the different counties down there.
get more rabbis and so on.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
So, thank you.